Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's the start of a new month, it's October, so I wanted to look back at September and rank the books that I read in September, which is something I used to do on this channel every month, at the end of every month. I haven't done it in a while, so I thought I'd bring it back. For no particular reason, if I'm going to be honest, September was not my greatest reading month by any stretch, but I did read a couple of interesting things that I thought it'd be fun to kind of throw it into your list and rank. You might get some recommendations out of it. I don't know. Some of these books I've talked about on this channel before, some of them I haven't. But let's go over the categories since it's been a while. The bottom category is the just no category. Which is reserved for books that I have no patience for. I didn't like them, and I don't think I ever will like them, and I just don't want anything to do with them. Above that is the not right now, I guess, category for books that didn't work for me, and I didn't like them, but I am holding out hope that maybe it was sort of a wrong place, wrong time kind of thing, and at some point in the future, I will learn to like whatever that book is. Above that is the could have lived without it category, which are for books that I'm pretty ambivalent about. Didn't hate them, but certainly didn't love them. Really, there was nothing that I'm going to take away from the book, and I could have gone my whole life without reading it, and I would have died just as happy. So, but above that is the glad I read it category. That one's pretty self-explanatory. Then there's the can't wait to read it again category, which are for books that are good enough to where I want to reread the thing either in sections or in its entirety. Which happens a lot, particularly in nonfiction, which I read a lot of nonfiction, and so certainly there'll be times when I'm reading nonfiction where I'll want to reread certain sections of it because it's particularly useful and particularly interesting. But the same thing goes for fiction too, where sometimes I'll just be like, that has some incredible scenes in it that I'll want to read again and re-experience. So that's what that tier's for. Above that is the it's in the canon tier. Books that fall into my own personal canon. When people say, I don't know, what's your favorite book from this year, or what's some notable reading experiences from this year that were really positive, that's what this tier is for. I think we all have our own sort of personal favorites and our own sort of idea of what a canon reading event is. And that actually brings up a point I want to make, which is that, like, just because I'm going to put something in the can't wait to read it again tier and then something else in the could have lived without it tier does not mean that I think that the book that I put in the can't wait to read it again tier is better than the one that I put it below it. This is all just my personal reactions to things and how it kind of sits with me in my reading life, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I think that one is objectively better than the other. And then that leaves us with the top tier, which is the grow old together tier, the tier for books that are just books that I never want to be apart from, books that I always want to have around me and read from until I can no longer read. No books this year have fallen into that tier, to be honest, but that's okay. I want to reserve that tier for books that are, amongst the greatest things that I've ever read. So let's get started, though. We'll start with Susan Jacoby. Strange Gods, A Secular History of Conversion, which I have talked about on this channel before. I really liked it. It says it right there on the tin. It's a secular history of conversions throughout history. Jacoby talks about people like Augustine in his Confessions, who has a very famous conversion all the way through to the more contemporary world. She makes references to other studies like William James's The Varieties of Religious Experience, which I thought was really interesting, and I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was extremely useful. I thought it had a bunch of great information in it. It was a great read. I certainly would recommend it if it sounds interesting to you. There will be a type of person for whom a book like this will be very helpful, and I think that if it piques your interest, you might be one of those people, so I definitely recommend it. And I'm going to put it in the can't wait to read it again category because there were certainly things in this book that I will be going back to. If not in its entirety, there will be sections, particularly like that section on Augustine, which I just loved, that I will be reading from again. So that's where that's going to go. Next is The Turn of the Screw. by Henry James, which I also talked about on this channel before. Gonna be honest with you, people are kind of polarized on The Turn of the Screw. Some people love it, some people hate it. And I mentioned in the video that I talked about this book in that I was pretty ambivalent toward it. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. Part of the reason that I'm kind of ambivalent toward it is because I don't happen to really like horror fiction in books because I usually find it pretty boring. And The Turn of the Screw, because it was a horror, it just didn't work that well for me. But there were things that I really liked about it and was kind of impressed with. But overall, if I'm going to be honest, and I am trying to be honest, I'm going to have to put this one in the could have lived without it category. But I will say that I have gotten so many comments from people. So many people have told me to read more of Henry James that I take that seriously. I don't know why. It could be that these people are making that suggestion just because they like William James a lot, or it could be because I guess there's something about me that people think I'll like William James a lot. I genuinely don't know. He's never really piqued my interest, but just because I'm kind of ambivalent on The Turn of the Screw does not mean that that I won't read more Henry James, not William James, more Henry James. I will definitely read more Henry James and report back when I do to all of you people who have been saying I should read more of him. That will happen. Next is Tess the D'Urbervilles. There's a story behind me reading this one. It was one of the two overdue classics that were bothering me the most that I hadn't read. I obviously haven't read every classic in the world, but there were two classics in particular that I hadn't read that were really bothering me, and Tess was one of them. But I happened to come across this copy in my local used bookstore, and I was like, oh, this is a sign that I will finally read Tess, and it almost killed me. It almost killed me. Tess was one of the most brutal reading experiences that I've had this year, and I read A Little Life, and I'm going to be honest, A Little Life has nothing on Tess. Tess is unbelievably brutal and disturbing. I had no idea it was going to be that difficult for me to read. And that might just be a personal thing, but like, holy smokes, that was not an easy reading experience for me at all. And honestly, I'm going to have to put it in its own category because I'm looking at these categories and it just defies every single one of them. So I'm going to put it in its own category. What should I call this category? I'm going to call this the, it was almost lethal. I'm going to put it in the, it was almost lethal category because it was, that's what it was. It almost killed me. So we'll move on from that to Wuthering Heights, the second of the two classics that I hadn't read that were way overdue and that were really bothering me that I hadn't read. Wuthering Heights was, first of all, it's an easy canon event reading experience for me this year. What a crazy book. It wasn't at all what I was expecting it to be, and to be honest, I made a video enthusing about it earlier in the week, and I didn't post it because I was like, man, you're such a cornball. But I was just talking about how it wasn't at all what I was expecting, and part of that was my fault. Part of that was because I had read Jane Eyre and have loved Jane Eyre for years and years and years. I read it, I want to say, I read it between high school and college. I can't remember exactly. I think that's when I read it, so somewhere around 2019, 2020. But, you know, when I read it, I loved it, and I thought it was incredible, but it was also exactly what I was expecting it to be. So I wasn't expecting a huge monkey wrench to be thrown into Wuthering Heights, which turned out to be the case because it's not even a love story. I mean, it's not even a romance. It's a horror story. I mean, it's terrifying at times. It's violent and disturbing in ways. It's about how generations affect each other and how somebody can abuse their children and then how that affects their children, and it's fascinating. It's fascinating, and it wasn't at all what I was expecting. What I was going on a tangent about was that new movie that is going to be made about Wuthering Heights, or the new adaptation about Wuthering Heights, and I was just pointing out that I feel like it's that movie continues to perpetuate the misconception that Wuthering Heights is a romance, which it isn't. I mean, it can't possibly be. Heathcliff is a monster. He's awful. He's irredeemably terrible. The things that he does to some of the characters in the book, completely innocent characters in the book, is atrocious, absolutely atrocious. And I wasn't expecting it, and I didn't know that's what I was going to get into. When I was reading it, though, I was absolutely captivated by it. It was a white-knuckling reading experience at times, so that's why it's in the canon. But yeah, it does, you know, when the trailer for that movie dropped, a bunch of people were upset by it, and I can totally understand why. I mean, that is not what Wuthering Heights is, and you know, I certainly respect anybody who's going to take artistic liberties with a adaptation, because I think that film and movies are just such different mediums, and I think that you are totally within your right to make certain changes to whatever you want in order to make your movie better. But I also think that if you change the original source material so much that it becomes something new and something that's just completely different from the source material, then you might as well just call it something completely different. Why would you even name your thing after something that you've departed so radically from? But anyway, as far as the book goes, it was incredible. I loved the ending. I loved the ending of it. I thought it just ended perfectly. But so that's going to go in there. And then, speaking of irredeemable people, this is American Psycho, Bret Easton Ellis. I also made a video about this. Thank you to all the people who left positive comments on that video. It was a lot of fun. I'm going to be honest. American Psycho is a book that I liked to a degree. I didn't love it, though. I liked it a lot when it was funny, which it is funny at times, which I really, really enjoyed. Overall, though, it was not an experience that I would want to repeat anytime soon. I am going to put it in the glad I read it category because I would still be curious about it if I hadn't read it. So it makes sense to put it there for now. But I don't think I'm going to be going back to it anytime soon. And then we've got Journey by Moonlight. This is a very interesting book that I had a really interesting time reading. It's psychological, cerebral in a lot of ways. I don't really know how to describe it. It's definitely written in a sort of tradition of literature that's psychoanalytic. You can definitely tell that there's, a kind of 20th century psychology moving through it, which I think was really interesting, if at times a bit dull, but I mentioned in the video where I talked about this book that it has stuck with me, which is enough to recommend it to me, just as a book that I will definitely say that I was glad that I read, because there's just some scenes in it that are very striking and very interesting, and I will reread it. So honestly, I don't know. Maybe I'm going to put it in the can't wait to read it again category. Just because I will reread it, or I will at least reread some of the scenes that I thought worked really well in it, and I liked it a lot, and it grew on me the more that I thought about it too. Okay, and then finally we've got The Compound, and you might be like, well, that's a weird book for you to read. Isn't that a piece of contemporary fiction? And I'll be like, yeah, you're right. And you might be like, well, you don't usually read pieces of contemporary fiction, right? And I'd be like, yeah, you're also right. But this was recommended to me. And to be honest, the person who was recommending it to me, they started to get a little violent. They started to get a little bit threatening, saying if I didn't read it, that they would, burn my house down and things like that. And so I got a little scared, and I needed to protect myself. So I thought, why not? And, it was exactly what I thought it was going to be. It was okay. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. It's a take on sort of like those shows like Love Island, where a bunch of attractive people are, sent to a very confined space and they have to do challenges together and things like that. Only this book takes it up a notch and sort of goes, well, what if Love Island was violent and people got hurt all the time, and there was people were starving and dehydrated, and it was in the desert and all sorts of stuff. So I'm going to be honest, though. I'm going to put it in the could have lived without a category. It was fun, and I liked it at times. But, to be honest, the issue with it is that it wasn't crazy enough. For example, the showrunners, the people who run this Love Island thing, I thought the mask was going to be pulled away and they were going to be revealed to be these horrible people. But at the end of the day, I guess they were just kind of cool. They were just kind of like, yeah, we like our contestants. We don't want to see them get hurt. We don't want to see them die. The tension of the book was kind of shot down a lot, I thought, by that. So that's it. That's my list. Overall, fun reading month. I read a couple of things this month that I definitely want to go back to. A couple of things that I was glad I read in one way or another. Tess almost killed me, but it didn't. So we live to see another day, and I'm going to leave it there for now. See ya.